Good morning. I just woke up and I haven't got out of bed yet. But I wanted to share with everyone, especially I felt like it was the right time. Mostly because everyone was talking about avatars yesterday and like, hey, what does this mean? And how do you think of it? And my experience comes from the past life regression that we did with my meditation teacher, Robin, who I really want to reconnect with more now that everyone's like, okay, time to get to work. Let's get everything done and do all the stuff and work and just like deep spiritual work. I feel like we're all like, yeah, let's do it. Let's really bust this shit out and change things and really have an impact. That's really what we all, like our souls desire is just to like be influential. It's natural. But so yeah, this was like last year, and I was taking these meditation classes 2 to 3 times a week. Had a lot of really great experiences, but we did the one past life regression meditation, and Ashton talks about this in his podcast of his experience with the podcast with CeeLo and Eternal Tribe. Honey Blessings, shout out. So yeah, we had a really good group that day, and the meditation, as he also describes, it was like we did chakra work, connect to the earth, the heavens, and then going inside of our heart, but through our heart, as I've heard multiple people describe, to get to like the deepest part of your soul, you have to go through your heart chakra. Like a lot of times when I'm having these journey meditations, um, I'll see it as a portal. So literally, I get closer. It's like a stargate, and I like zip through the stargate, like into this very otherworldly. Like it's like another dimension, because it really is another dimension of self. And go through that, and then in this meditation, it was like we envisioned like a hallway and all these different doors. I should really find my notes. I don't know. They're probably, who knows what they could be. But I'll just tell you from my memory. And I mean, my first regression was this life that I had in 17, 1800s France, um, high society, and it was really traumatic, really traumatic. And I have spent a lot of time integrating that life. When I shared about that life, I was like crying in front of this big group of people that we were with. I was like, everyone come to this meditation, and I'm like there, and I'm like crying about this, and people don't understand, and because I'm just a very emotional person, and I'm very open with my emotions, and normally I'm very, very happy, joyful, like always smiling kind of person, but then again, I show all my emotions very intensely, and so I was crying about getting my head chopped off, and so then Ashton had his experience in the Pleiades, And then we did one more. So the second time I went in, I went to that life that Ashton had just talked about. And I remember seeing the city so much. But it was like on a spaceship, this huge spaceship. And I call it like a city, but it's just like this like community. And part of my vision was just seeing groups of people doing spiritual things all the time. Like it was like what they love to do. It was a huge part of their way of life. And it just feels so amazing to me to think about that. Like I miss it so much. I have a ringing in my ear now. I've been getting that a lot listening to your videos and all of you. Kind of distracted me. But yeah, it felt like home. It felt like everything I've been missing. And it was an in-between station. Like we were delegates from the Pleiades. But we had signed up for this mission. So you almost like spend like a lifetime on this ship just as a mission preparing for your next mission. And that's what it was. Like all of these people, it was like this huge like city. It was like there's probably thousands and thousands of people, or I mean, yeah, um, different races. Like most people were from Pleiades, but in the Pleiades there's like different races. So it's like a lot of us were the same, but there were still some different. I would say like ethnicity, like different races. Because I remember Ashton being a different race than me, like. But it was hard, like when I saw Ashton, in my regression, it was like my mind saw him like kind of as I do see him now, even though I had a true understanding that he in that life looked very, very different. Um, and I remember exactly what he was wearing. Like he had this uniform on. It was like bright blue. And recently with one of my meditations I did, like I got the words like command a magi, like a magistrate, but like a magician, but very strongly the word would not translate, but he was something like that is something we can interpret. So in through going through this regression, it was like before I had even met Ashton, I didn't even know him for a long time. Um, but I was really close with Melissa, who's I'm also really close with. I know we have shared connections in so many lifetimes. There's a lot of history there and karma, because that's what happens when we're all together so many times and do so many things. So, um, yeah, I was with Melissa, and I remember for most of my regression, it was like we were training, we were preparing, we were just. It wasn't like work because we all loved the spiritual work so much, and that's what we did all the time together, and all sorts of different combinations. And that was like the intention of the entire spaceship was like to do all the spiritual work. And then we would pick a mission. And me and Melissa were friends for a while. And then I remember in this life, Ashton coming to me. Like he had already decided to do this mission, and he was looking for a team to go with, to work with while we were there. Um, and I remember him coming to me one night, and like he's like, I think you would do really great. I think you would really want to do this. Like I think this is what we should do. And I was like really excited, like, whoa, this is it. This is our mission. This is what we've chosen. Like, and we all knew that it was going to be very, very, very challenging. There was one part of my regression I remember very strongly, like a whole, like the core group. the one us that we were really close. We got together one night. We were all meditating and on our intention and choosing this mission. And that's there were some people in the group who were really almost unsure, like, is this right? This is like, I know this is gonna be really, really hard. Like, they were almost like, is this really what I want? But then we all decided that yes, it was. And so, yeah, that was what I experienced in that regression as a past life, although it is really a future life, which is hard for our linear minds to comprehend, but that's just the nature of time, that there really is no time. There is, but it all exists simultaneously. So what we think of as the past and the future are just same points of present now moments. And 11 minutes, 11 seconds. I like always look at numbers like that. So yeah, it was like in that life, in the Pleiadian delegate starship, we were all preparing. Um, we went from that life. It was like we got to that point. We were like completely prepared for the mission, and we'd all decided to go. So we just like beamed our consciousness from that life here into a physical body, and that started for me our birth. That's how I feel. That was just like me choosing to come in this life. And what's hard is that past lives are so interconnected. There's so much going on. It's so complicated that I don't believe it can be understood very simply. But by doing this work, I feel like it's so important to learn more, to learn these connections, to see how souls work. Um, and when I had this trip, it was with Ash and Melissa, Hillary, who's like my sister, and our friend Nick. I came out of my trip realizing that all of existence was like this matter. And so any point, obviously, if you have this matter, even if it's like the illusion of this, there's infinite points in this because they're infinitesimally small. So infinite points in this mass of space, or whatever, this space. Infinite points throughout the entire space. And all points are existences, lifetimes, all existing simultaneously. So all lifetimes that have ever been, every experience that has ever been experienced at all, period. It's all in this space. It's all one of these infinite points here. And a soul, like, or my body, like, this life is like one of those infinitesimally small, tiny, tiny, tiny dots. So this life is like one of these infinite other experiential lifetimes that have ever existed and will ever exist and exist now. So I'm very mathematical, and like, so I envision it just like this three-dimensional graph. Here's one soul, one lifetime. This is my lifetime. And I feel like all the lifetimes that I connect with are literally spatially connected there. But in another dimension of this graph, like, each soul has a bubble. If you can imagine like a sphere around this point, which is a lifetime, a sphere around it, that sphere is all the past lives that you encompass. So really it's like all experiences, any self that ever was a self is the same self. We're all the same one. I feel like that's a principle, a universal principle. But in terms of how souls work, we have a lifetime. That soul brings into this lifetime with a bubble of past lives that are like in that soul bubble. So it's interacting with all of this energy of simultaneously existing lifetimes that it's connecting to. It's like, and as we wake up, as we become more aware, increase our, we expand, this bubble can increase and we start drawing on more and more and more experiential lifetimes which we connect with as like a past future like reflective life, like I meet people all the time in this life and I look at them and I know that that's me, that like that's me in another life, like I'm doing things, like it's so reflective of like the oneness, but almost like that's almost like the Katie vibration. Any Katie, any Catherine, I meet anyone that has like the same root word, like Catherine comes from the same like root. I feel like I was like that's me. That's like part of me, you know, and expanding that selfness. So that was a tangent. I guess I didn't really expect to go on, but I think it's really, really um, pertinent information that had been downloaded to me from my experiences in terms of understanding what goes on with us and our experiences and how we understand them in like a type of under like a framework of understanding. It's really important. I'm cold. It's been so cold recently. I can't wait for it to be warm again. And getting back to this past life, future life, avatar experience, it's pretty much just because we had this future life, which seems like my past life, where we all decided to plug ourselves into Earth because that's the mission we chose. And it's because of that experience that I feel like a starseed. I know a lot of people can think of starseeds as a different thing. I think of it as that one thing. I was from the stars, lived there, did that for lifetimes. I felt like there had been a huge gap. It's hard for me to understand from coming in from that Pleiadian life. Like I feel like I do have a lot of other earthly lives, and it's hard for me to understand how that works in a timeline. But even I'm being guided to say like there is no timeline. Timeline is very linear. That's not how the the higher levels, expansions, dimensions work. It's not like this and then this and then this. It all happens simultaneously, instantaneously. That's how immensely powerful we are. Um, so, yeah. And on that note, back with Avatar, it's just like the movie Avatar. Like he's on he's like they're like on these spacecrafts and they get in like these big like technological beds. I'm pretty sure that's exactly how Ashton saw it. I didn't see that in my regression, but that resonates with me very strongly, like these beds. When I go into a tanner, I think about it almost every single time that this is like some future shit, like that we can get in this bed and it would like preserve. I really feel like when I die, like I'm gonna like blip back in this body and like literally no time has passed at all. For everyone else, it's gonna be like, I don't know, like 10 minutes, half an hour. And I'll be like, I just fucking experienced this whole human lifetime. It was fucking nuts. And people were like, oh, it's awesome. I just ate a sandwich. And I was like, that's just how it is. But yeah, that is how I feel about my Avatar experience. And I like the word Avatar just because it relates to the movie. And the movie, I feel like, so well describes what happened, especially with Ashton's experience of him being a blue alien. I was like very, what I would describe as angelic looking, blonde, very pale skin, small frame, very human like, but just blonde and light skinned and very fair, simple. And I do feel like a lot of angels that people interact with are probably aliens, and they very well could be Pleiadian or similar to that. Some race that um, is like on their similar vibration. They do seem very angelic like. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything I wanted to share. I hope you appreciate my insight. That's my experience with it. And peace be with you.